Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our attendees. Thank you for joining us today for our General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR webinar. Your presenters today, I am Anisha Yadav.
Hi, and I'm Daria Sobotka. As some of you might already know us, we are the hospitality marketing strategist here at Revinate for North America market and LATAM. We help you with your email marketing strategy, database analytics, campaign reporting, but we are not lawyers, so this is not a legal advice. So here's a brief overview what we will be talking about today. What is GDPR anyway? What you're probably all waiting for is how does it affect your hotel? We'll cover 4 fundamental pillars of GDPR, and we'll say what is the Revinate solution to it. We will also do a demo to show the exciting new features, and we finish with your questions at the end. So before we get into the depth of it, we wanted to remind you of some important terms that we will be using today pretty often. So number 1, explicit consent, also known as express or direct consent. Explicit consent refers to contact that has given you explicit permission to contact them through electronic messages. So a good example of it is a newsletter sign-up form on your website, for example. Implicit consent, on the other hand, is not expressly granted by a person, but rather assumed by a person's actions and the effects of particular situation. So for example, a guest stays on the property and it might be implied that they're okay receiving your email. With double opt-in, a person needs to proactively confirm their subscription. So this usually requires a person to click a link in a subscription confirmation email that is sent immediately after they ask to join your email list. So it's important to know here that if the person doesn't click on this link, they shouldn't receive your emails if you want to be GDPR compliant moving forward. And of course, GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, we will talk in depth about it on the next slide. So what is GDPR? GDPR is the regulation that goes into effect on May 25th, 2018, and impacts any entity that has personal data of any European Union resident or citizen. GDPR law aims to protect and strengthen the privacy rights of European Union individuals through more stricter, more defined requirements for handling personal data and purpose to give more control back to EU citizens and residents. What's very important for you to know is that fines for violating GDPR can be as high as 20 million euros. So this is why we actually doing this webinar, quite a hot and important topic. Okay. So now what you really want to know, does it affect your hotel? The short answer to this is yes. So basically, if you have personal data of any EU resident or citizen, that applies to you. Moreover, hotels are especially vulnerable to data breaches considering the huge amount of personal data that you guys are storing and processing. So in addition, it also was recently announced that the United Kingdom has stated that they will match the European Union GDPR regulation into their own laws after Brexit. So that is coming up too.
Okay, so let's look at some terms that we need to understand before we dive deeper. So like you mentioned, personal data is one term that needs to be clarified. So what is personal data? So in general, we assume credit card information to be personal data, but there is more to it. So any other data of the guest that could lead to the identification, and we've listed some of them here. For example, the guest's name, their physical address or their email address, their phone number, or for example, if they're on your website and they're browsing and it's their IP address, or their stay history, their traveling patterns. So all of that is attributed to guest identification, and it can be termed as personal data as per the GDPR regulation. Some other terms that you need to understand are listed here. So there's data controller, data processor, and data subprocessor. So let's look at each of these individually. So what's a data controller? So in our scenario, the data controller would be the hotel, as you determine the purpose and way in which you would be using your guest's data. Data processor, so this is the entity that processes the personal data on behalf of the data controller. So that is the hotel. So for example, besides Revinate, your data processor could be other vendors such as your property management system, your central reservation system, your booking engine provider. So all of these are your data processors. Last is the data subprocessor. So these are vendors who process personal data on behalf of the processor. So companies that Revinate work with, for example, we use SendGrid as our email service provider. So that attributes SendGrid to be a data subprocessor.
So to make it a little easier for you, we've broken down the fundamentals of GDPR into 4 pillars that will have the biggest impact on hoteliers. So number 1 is proof of consent. Number 2 is right to data portability. Number 3 is right to erasure. And number 4 is right to refuse profiling. We will cover all and each of them in more details later. So the first pillar is proof of consent. We spoke about different types of consents in the very beginning. It is important to remember that consent is the basis of processing personal data. So what's new coming with GDPR in that regard? First of all, consent requires a positive opt-in now. So any pre-checked boxes will not be accepted as consent. Also, guests must be clear on why they will have to provide personal data and for what it will be used. So that ties to your privacy policy. Make sure it includes all of that. It is now mandatory to keep evidence of how, when, and what individual consented to. So there is basically to have your proof of consent. And lastly, double opt-in, which is, however, not required, but we recommend it as a proven method of capturing proof of consent. So what's Revinate's solution? At Revinate, we're working hard to provide you with all the tools and functionality to help you comply with the new regulation. So among the range of new features, we recently released double opt-in feature that will allow you to collect double opt-in statuses and a safe mode checkbox that is intended to exclude guests from European Union that do not have explicit or double opt-in status from your send. We will cover this functionality in details in our demo later on. So a second pillar is right to data portability. With GDPR, European Union citizens have the right to access and request a copy of their own personal data at any time. So this specifies so European Union citizens can update, delete, restrict, or move their data to another organization without any interference at all. So at this time, if you get a request from the guest about that, please contact our support team at support@revinate.com, and they will be able to assist you. We are also currently working on building a user-facing functionality in the Reach Guest profile to be able to download the guest personal data yourself. That's coming up soon.
Okay, so let's look at the third pillar of GDPR. It's known as right to erasure, also known as right to be forgotten. So as per GDPR, guests have the right to request a controller, that is you, the hotel, to delete all their personal data from all platforms to stop any further distribution. So that would include deletion from the PMS, from Revinate side, from your CRS, etc. So how do you go about doing that on Revinate? Like we mentioned before, you can simply email our support team at this email here, that's support@revinate.com. Also, like we mentioned, we are also building a functionality in our product to let our users delete the rich guest profile on their own. Until then, feel free to contact our support@Revinate email address. Also, just a reminder again, so besides deleting the profile from Revinate, you want to make sure that you're doing the same process to delete the data from your PMS as well. Okay, so the last pillar of GDPR is known as right to refusal of profiling. So we touched on personal data before. So what profiling means is using the personal data of the guest to send them targeted or personalized messaging. So as per GDPR, the European Union citizens and residents have the right to refuse profiling. So keep in mind that if a guest refuses to be profiled, does not mean that you need to delete their data. It basically means that we cannot send them personalized or targeted messages. And to execute this on our side, you simply can email our support address here, support@Revinate, to get that executed for your hotel. Let's look at now 3 things you must do tomorrow if you have not done that already. So we've listed that for you, pretty simple. Number 1 would be update your privacy policy. So as a hotel, and that's the data controller, it's your obligation to inform your guests of the data processing activities. So really, you want to make sure that you're communicating how, why, and what personal data of the guests you're processing. So that's number 1 that you want to do today if you haven't done that already. Number 2 is you want to sign the data processing agreement. So as a data controller, you're obliged to sign the DPA with all your processors, including Revinate. So we will be sending out our DPA this week, so look out for that email. And please make sure you sign that and send it back to us before the deadline of May 25th. Also, we have some contact information here. So if you have any questions, make sure you reach out to support+privacy@revinate.com. Also, we have a landing page that's revinate.com/privacy. So a lot of information on that side. So make sure you access that if you have any questions. And the last thing you want to do is ensure you have proof of consent for all European Union residents or citizens. And to go about that, we have the double opt-in feature, which we will cover in our next section.
Okay, speaking of double opt-in, we would like to share with you some best practices before we jump to the demo. So first of all, send your double opt-in email sooner than later. You can send it to your current database, or you can send it just to European Union guests. It's totally your call. What we want to recommend is after you send your campaign, you also want to create a couple of drip campaigns to continue sending best on guest engagement. So for example, if your first campaign went out, a couple of days later, you can go ahead and create a new campaign and filter it to go out to only people that opened your email but haven't clicked actually on a double opt-in link. If you do so, make sure you change the subject line a little bit and the content, and maybe throw a little bit more incentive there for people to actually click on double opt-in link. And that ties to my second recommendation, which is incentivize double opt-in by providing a promo code for sign up on a landing page. So a good practice, and I've seen a lot of hotels do that, they would actually include a promo code and a little discount on their double opt-in email. So it incentivizes people to not only open your email, but also click, get to that landing page, and get the promo code to use it for future booking. Also, include your privacy policy right on the email itself. You don't have to include the whole policy, obviously it will be way too long. You can actually also just have the link to your privacy policy landing page. Again, we're not lawyers here, but there are a couple of things I wanted to remind you to make sure you include in your privacy policy, which is you need to mention that you capture IPs. You also need to mention that you will be doing profiling, which is your segmentation and targeting. You need to mention that Revinate is a data processor, and absolutely important to say what is the data will be used for. Another best practice, include your clear unsubscribe link. That should not be new to you. You know that every marketing email has to have unsubscribe link. Per double opt-in, it's actually important to it has to be as easy to opt out as opt in. So next, be very clear and concise with what your data, you have and what it will be used for when someone is opting in. So for example, if you send in campaign from the property, you want to continue market them from the group, you need to mention that in your email as well. And also moving forward, we recommend that your confirmations, modifications, and cancellations include opt-in message or subscribe link, so you capture as many double opt-in statuses as possible with all of your email marketing campaigns. Okay, and now the exciting part, the demo time.
Yeah, let's dive into our product now. Great. So when you log on to your platform, this is the main screen that you would see. That's the dashboard of your property. So we're going to show you a couple of things that are built as functionality from our site. So let's first look at the double opt-in segment that has been pre-created. To access that, you want to click on the Guest and Segments tab here, and then choose Guest Segments. So that would load all your segment cards that are pre-created and the properties made so far. So we can then access the double opt-in GDPR segment as well that's pre-created for all properties and group accounts. So if you scroll down here, you can see the GDPR double opt-in segment created here. So I'm just going to show it to you quickly. So if you see here, the location is of all the EU member countries and states that's been added here. And the subscription status is subscribed implicit. And you can also go ahead and, if you like, you can add subscribed implicit as well, depending on if you would like to include that to capture the proof of consent. So that segment is already pre-created for all the properties. Now let's go ahead and look at how you can go and create the double opt-in landing page. In order to access the settings, click on the gear icon here and go to account setting. So this will load the setting page, which gives you access to campaign settings, upsells, and now it also has double opt-in there. So you want to click on double opt-in. So basically, this is the landing page that will open when the guest clicks on the CTA of the double opt-in campaign. So here it gives you options to add your hotel's logo. You can add banner information. You can also customize the content here. So you can just click on the edit button here. So here you can customize the messaging if you would like to thank the guest for signing up. Also, like Dasha mentioned before, as a best practice, you want to include a promotional code that can be given to the guest as incentive to sign up. Also, the promo code is mentioned here in the landing page as against the email, because you want to make sure it's a second step to access. So when the guest clicks on the email, then they get access to the promo code in the landing page. Perfect. So pretty simple to build and customize for your property. We'll now look at how you can go about creating the double opt-in campaign in our platform.
Okay, so to create your double opt-in campaign, you can simply go through the steps as you always do. You can create the campaign from the scratch by clicking on this Create Campaign blue button on the top right corner, or you can duplicate one of your current offers, which I'm going to do actually right now. I already started to work on this double opt-in campaign. So I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate it to go through steps with you. So for campaign type, we added actually another new campaign type, which is double opt-in as a part of the new feature. So go ahead and click on double opt-in campaign type. Here to the right, it goes your internal campaign name, so make sure it's recognizable. It's an internal view again. This is not the subject line. We click in next. I already have used that. Click in next to go to your design page, where you're actually working on a design creation. So here you create double opt-in campaign. It's the same exact way as you would create any other campaign. All the email marketing best practices apply. So make sure your subject line is very attractive. I created something here. I'll read it to you. Daria, opt in and get a 15% off your next stay. So see how here I included the first name merge tag to get more attention, and I also included 15% off. So it's incentive for guests to click on the email to open it and actually to sign up for the future communication. By scrolling down, I have on my email logo, Avertin's logo. Make sure you add an alternative text to all of your images and images on the email. This is important for deliverability best results. Below goes your hero image, same, add alternative text, add URL to this, and I'm scrolling down to show you the main message. I'll go ahead and read it for you. So Daria, don't miss out. We want to make sure you never miss a thing and can take advantage of our great offers crafted just for you. So pay attention how here I mentioned profiling by saying that the messages will be crafted just for them. My next sentence is, from May 25th, data protection laws are changing, and we want to have your permission to stay in touch. So notice how clear the message is, that you need to make sure your message is very clear and states the purpose why you're emailing people. And the most important part, Stay subscribed by clicking the button below to receive a promo code with 15% off your next stay. So here it is very clear that by clicking on the button below this call to action button, yes, please, guests will confirm they want to stay subscribed and receive continued email marketing communication from us. And also it's clear that by clicking on that, they will get a promo code later on to stay. So incentive is right there in that sentence as well. So speaking of the call to action button, here, this is your CTA. To the right, there are CTA settings, which I wanted to highlight today. So usually you would link your CTA button to an external URL. Today, I wanted to show you that now with a double opt-in feature, you can actually link your CTA button to double opt-in landing page. This is the one that Anisha just went through setting up with you. So basically by clicking on this button, instead of getting to external resource, your guest will get to the landing page where they're able to click, and in this way, they will be able to double opt-in, and you'll have the proof of their double opt-in status. Remember, I mentioned before, one of the best practices of GDPR is also to make sure your guest can as easily opt out and they can easily opt in. So for this purpose, we created another CTA button here down below that says, no, please unsubscribe. So this is for the purpose to make it super easy for guests to unsubscribe from the emails. You know, as always, we have unsubscribe link at the footer of the email. However, for this double opt-in campaign, we created the CTA as well to make it even easier for guests to opt out. Because at the end, you want people to that really want to hear from you. What I wanted to show you here, instead of choosing double opt-in for this link, for the CTA button, here to the right, I'm linking my no unsubscribe button to unsubscribe URL merge tag. Please note that there is no drop-down for you to choose that option. You actually need to manually type in unsubscribe URL in the brackets to be able to link this CTA button to the unsubscribe functionality. And we will be sending this recording, so you will remember this, and for your reference, you'll have that for your reference moving forward. Okay, once you're done with your CTA buttons here, don't forget to add the privacy policy paragraph below. As I mentioned before, it doesn't have to be the full privacy policy paragraph. It can be a link to your privacy policy landing page. Again, don't forget to mention the important things such as that you will be capturing people's IP, that you will be doing profiling, Revinate as a data processor, and what the data that you collected will be used for in the future. Once you're done with the main part, don't forget to, as always, set up your social media links, contact information of your hotel. Don't forget the physical address at the bottom. This is actually important for deliverability as well, that every email has a physical address of the property. Your contact information and unsubscribe link, as always, at the bottom. Once you're done creating your email, go ahead and click next to get to the new page. So on this page, preview and test, as you all know, you can preview what you have just created. You can preview it on a desktop. You can preview it on a smartphone and on other specific software devices. Once you're done previewing and happy with what you have created, click next to get to the choose segment section. So here, again, it's up to you who you would like to send the double opt-in campaign to. You can send it to entire database, you can send it to European Union, or you can just add it as a part of your regular offer, totally up to you. So for this presentation, I'm going to go ahead and choose our beautifully pre-created GDPR segment that has all the European Union countries. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. So now my campaign will be going out to just those people. Once I'm happy with the segment, I'm clicking next to get to the scheduling page. So here, as always, you just choose the time. Let's say I want to send this campaign at 3 o'clock, 3:20, tomorrow. The sooner the better, right? Clicking next. This is your last stage where you can review everything. The campaign name, campaign type, quick look at your design. You can send a test email to yourself, confirm which segment you chose, the schedule, and you can go ahead and schedule the campaign here at the bottom. I'm not going to schedule this campaign right now for the purpose of this presentation. You all know how to do that. Okay, and that's it.
Perfect. So let's now look at, say, for example, if you're sending a campaign in the month of June, so what happens after May 25th? How do you go about sending a campaign? So I wanted to show you real quick, say, for example, this is an offer that we're sending, say, in the month of June. And say we have this high ADR segment, which maybe has a filter of ADR more than $300 plus. So this segment might still have guests who are in the European Union. So for that purpose, Revinate has a functionality that's called Enable Safe Mode for GDPR compliant. If you check that, what happens is it includes guests who are in EU, and there are two options to choose. So there's one that says explicit or double opt-in consent, or to be even safer, you can choose double opt-in consent only. So you can pick either depending on what your hotel strategy is. Also, if you roll your mouse over this tooltip, it will specify that this option of safe mode only impacts the guests who are living in EU and does not impact anything else from your existing segmentation or your campaign filters. Perfect. So now let's go back to our slides here. Great. So if you want more information, as we mentioned, there is a landing page dedicated just for GDPR updates. So you can visit that on revinate.com/GDPR. Also, you can download our e-guide, which is also available on our landing page. It has a lot of information about hotels and the impact of GDPR. We also have a link for most frequently asked questions that you can access on the landing page. Also, we will be doing encore presentation of this webinar. So if you have other team members that are interested to sign up, we have listed the times here for them to register for the following sessions of this webinar. Perfect. So as we mentioned before, make sure you're typing in your questions in the chat box. We're just going to look over for some questions. Perfect. So we have a question. I'm going to read that out for you, everyone. It says, to comply to a GDPR regulation, do we need to delete profiles of guests who have not engaged with our marketing campaigns in the last few years? So that's a great question. So it's talking about engagement of the guests and if that requires deletion. So in general, I think we don't recommend deleting profiles unless the guest requests for it. So the guest emails and reaches out to you and say that, hey, please delete my profile. It's only then that you would want to delete it. And to go about that, like you mentioned before, you can email our support@revinate.com to get that executed. What we do recommend is as a best practice, and I think if you've worked with HMSs before, hospitality marketing strategists, we do recommend that you engage and you send campaigns to recent guests. So the guests who have stayed on property maybe the last couple of months. So there's higher brand recall value. So you want to make sure you're sending campaigns to those guests, or the guests who have been engaging with your recent campaigns. So say they've opened and they've clicked on your campaign. So that's the audience you want to reach out to make sure that you're getting higher conversions and better campaign results.
Great.
Let's look at some other questions here.
There's a lot of questions. That's good. Okay, I see this one. I've heard that actually before. Great question. So I'll read it to you. Should I send double opt-in campaign to my entire database before May 25th? As I said, it's a great question, and I hear that question a lot. So there's actually two schools of thought on whether you need to double opt-in your entire database or not. There's a GDPR section that talks about legitimate interest if you have a pre-existing relationship with a person. So, for example, a guest has stayed with you before. So until there is more clarity, one approach properties are utilizing is to send a double opt-in campaign to people that they do not have the pre-existing relationship. So those, for example, signing up on your newsletter or coming through the contact list. So others will send a double opt-in campaign to all European Union contacts. And there are hotels that will target the entire database. So at the end, it's totally your call. And we do recommend that you seek a legal advice for this strategy. All right. I have one more question. Here's the question. Are my surveys affected by GDPR? And I see another similar question. Do I need to do anything different with my surveys after May 25th? So this is a very good question as well. Surveys, as you know, not direct marketing, and they're much less affected by GDPR. However, we have added a couple of functionalities in our survey product as well. One is the bulk unsubscribe tool that allow you this bulk unsubscribe will allow you to unsubscribe multiple profiles as you wish. And also for the right of access and for the right of erasure, you can also reach out to our support at revinate.com, and they will be able to assist you with that.
Great. Yep.
Let's see, do we have time for more questions?
Yeah, I think kind of rephrasing the same questions here, and that we
there are a couple more questions about surveys. Are you implementing anything specific for the surveys? As I mentioned, we have bulk unsubscribe functionality, so you able to unsubscribe multiple profiles all at the same time. And to execute your other rights, the right of access and the right to erasure, please reach out to support team. They will be able to assist you.
Okay, so we see there are a lot of questions coming in. So unfortunately, we are running out of time. So as mentioned before, we will make sure we get back to all your questions personally via email right after the webinar. And like you mentioned, we will be sending a copy of the presentation and the recording to all our attendees. So we really hope this was helpful in understanding GDPR and the impact on hotels and what Revinate has done on our side. So thank you so much again for joining our session. Thank you, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.